Thank you for taking the time to do this interview with me today. To introduce myself, my name is Annie, and I created Sustainability Beyond the Lab to make sustainable research more accessible for general audiences, as well as highlight the barriers that prevent their scale up. So, to start, could you also give a brief introduction of yourself, as well as your work currently as a postdoc researcher and your past work at Virginia Tech?
Yes, so my name is Anika, and I am a postdoctoral researcher at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. I did my PhD from Virginia Tech in chemistry, where my work mostly focused on looking at the synthesis processes of lithium and sodium-ion batteries. And then I started my postdoc at the Berkeley Lab, where I'm now looking at AI-guided synthesis systems, like how AI can help us accelerate our discoveries in how we make new materials for different complex oxides.
For audience who aren't that familiar with battery materials research, what problem is this field aiming to solve, and why is it so important for the future of clean energy?
I think we have batteries in a lot of products that we use in our daily life, right? For example, in our smartphones, in our laptops, in our electric vehicles, etc., etc. So I think the major challenges on the material side is how to make the battery materials um, higher in energy density or extend their cycle life. Cycle meaning when you charge and discharge your battery,
Mhm.
that's like one cycle. So how you can extend your cycle life so that it lasts longer, or how to make the chemistry more safer, because you might have heard of batteries catching on fire and things like
Mhm,
that.
yeah.
So there are many challenges like that, and so the field is trying to look at all of these things from different angles. Yeah.
That's really interesting to hear. Thank you for explaining that. Much of your work, I've noticed, kind of focuses on how battery materials form during synthesis and how that affects their
Mhm.
performance. Why is that so important for developing better materials, like understanding them at the atomic level?
Yeah, so the quality of your battery, like how long it's going to last, or how energy dense it's going to be, it all starts in how well you can make the materials, right?
Mhm.
So battery mainly is composed of a cathode, there's an electrolyte, and there's a anode, right? So my work mostly focused on the cathode side of the battery. So
Mhm.
I developed a lot of cathode materials, looked at the synthesis of how to make these materials in a better way. So there are many different aspects of a cathode material. For example, if you look at the microscopic level, the cathode is composed of many different small particles,
Mhm.
right? Um, and the size of these particles can be in the micron scale. Like for your reference, for example, a human hair is like 100 micrometers, but the size of these particles are in like 5 to 10 micrometers in that scale, right? So they're extremely small. But it is important that you engineer how these materials look at that such small scale, because it determines it has a lot of effect on its cycle life and also how energy dense they can be. For example, it's really important that these particles are like really spherical in shape, or
Mhm.
mostly spherical, and there's like a good particle size distribution of these materials, because that would ensure that they have less bad side reactions when you are actually using the cathode material in practice in like a real device.
Mhm.
So my work mostly focused on looking at how we can improve the particle size and shape distribution of these in such really small scale. When you look at that, like at microscopic level, how you can engineer the particle shape and size mostly. So because the batteries that we use today, the commercial batteries, they're mostly lithium-ion batteries, and my work focused on the sodium ion version of these batteries, because sodium is much more inexpensive and abundant in
Yeah.
nature, and it can be a really great and interesting alternative material to the lithium ion batteries that we have right now. But the synthesis of battery materials is not as well established as
Mhm.
the lithium-ion battery materials. So my PhD thesis was on taking a closer look at what the problems are when we try to make the sodium version of today's lithium-ion batteries and how we can solve that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really interesting hearing about how like the atomic level size of these particles, for example, affects its behavior and cycle, as well as your past work on sodium-ion batteries. Are there any projects that you're currently working on? You mentioned like using AI for these batteries that you find really exciting.
So, my work right now, it really does not focus on battery materials anymore, although I am doing some battery work as well. But
Mhm.
most of my work basically focuses on looking at a more broader class of oxide materials. So, battery materials are certain type of oxide materials, but then there are many other types of oxide materials that you can use it can be batteries, it can be catalysis. They have like many different application
Wow.
in energy sciences. And so the project that I'm doing right now, it's in literature, like there are thousands and thousands of academic papers that are coming out from researchers all around the world, right? So you want to make a material when you look at the literature that how researchers have made it for years, right? But
Mhm.
there is so much data that's available to you. And there are so many different ways people can make one material, right? There are maybe 4 or 5 different reactions that you can try to make one material. And all of that can end up you having different quality of the material, right? For example, you try reaction A to make your material, you probably end up with something that's maybe 90% pure, right?
Mhm.
But you try reaction B and that gives you 95% purity. Now, what causes the difference when you try reaction A versus reaction B? So there are thousands of papers available to you that contains the information, but sort of in a disorganized way. It's not organized in a way that you can sort of gain this knowledge in an easy way. But now,
Mhm.
when there's AI, like large language models, they can do this job much faster than humans. They can like look at all this knowledge available. For example, I can maybe read 20 to 50 papers for my work, right? But the AI, if I'm using AI, I can accelerate that process and I can probably consolidate the knowledge from essentially thousands of papers,
Yeah.
right? So it really sort of synthesizes knowledge from a vast literature space. And so basically, my work now focuses on how we can use AI to navigate so much knowledge about material synthesis and how we can fill in the gaps with our experiments and our understanding on why certain things work better to make a material versus the other. So I think in very simple terms, that's how I can describe the work that I'm doing right now. And I'm really excited to see how large language models can help us make better materials and do it in a better way than the
Mhm.
past.
That sounds like a very like helpful tool, honestly, because it reduces so much time spent reading these articles and
Yes,
lots of effort.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. For your research spanning like lithium-ion batteries versus sodium-ion batteries, what are kind of the advantages and trade-offs for each types of these batteries?
So the commercial batteries that we have available are lithium-ion batteries, but
Mhm.
these batteries we have been using for years. So they employ some transition metals like nickel, cobalt, manganese, and a lot of the materials have some supply chain constraints because they are very much concentrated to certain regions in the world.
Mhm.
So their supply can like fluctuate with geopolitics and many other things, you
Yeah.
know. But the good thing about sodium ion chemistry is that it does not have to rely on these critical minerals like cobalt and nickel. It
Mhm.
can actually incorporate. So you know, in the periodic table, how you have like 3D block elements, right? There are like
Yeah.
many elements in the 3D block. So for sodium ion chemistry, for lithium ion chemistry, you have to sort of really rely on the supply of cobalt and nickel because those
Mhm.
are the only transition metals that mostly work in a layered oxide cathode for lithium-ion batteries that we use commercially. So that creates a lot of strain in their supply, and their cost also can
Yeah.
fluctuate with a lot of things. But sodium-ion batteries can actually incorporate a lot of 3D transition metals that lithium-ion batteries can't. So you can actually make your batteries with many more abundant materials compared to what you can do with lithium-ion batteries. But the trade-off comes in the sense that sodium is heavier than lithium, which results in them having lower energy density than their lithium counterparts.
Mhm.
So that's where like the compromise is. But if you think about sodium is also much more abundant than lithium,
Yeah.
and it can also um, like you can also make sodium ion batteries with many more abundant transition metals. So they can be like a low cost and better, not better, but sort of like an alternative
Yeah.
to lithium ion batteries. Like for different applications where you don't need super high energy density, you can probably swap your lithium ion battery with sodium ion batteries. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really interesting hearing the cost side and then also kind of the energy density side. What do you see as the biggest challenges preventing like sodium batteries from widespread adoption? And would you say those challenges are mostly based on like the scientific innovation itself, economics, policy, or maybe a combination of all of these factors?
So, because lithium ion chemistry has been around for some time, and
Mhm.
so we know all the I think the development, lithium has gone through a long time of development for its chemistry, engineering, and a lot of the things. So it has been optimized for many, many years, right? But I think we're still trying to understand the sodium system, which I think researchers find that is the chemistry side is much more complicated than lithium ion systems, right? Because as I said, you can incorporate many more transition metals in a sodium ion battery, but it's not easy to do. It brings its own set of complications when you try to incorporate many kind of transition metals into a sodium ion battery. Right. So I think the field is trying to solve that problems, trying to have a better understanding of all of the different issues that are present in sodium ion batteries, which can be quite unique compared to what we understand about lithium ion batteries, right? So definitely the challenge is because, and also like the material discovery space is also really large for sodium ion batteries. So definitely there are challenges on discovering better materials, optimizing them, so and like solving all the different issues that they have. So there's also challenges in their engineering side, and there's always different policies that support one research versus the other. So I think sort of like a combination of everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking 10 to 20 years in the future, what developments in, for example, battery technology or the work that you're doing right now with AI are you most excited to see?
I think in the battery side, I don't know if we are going to have like a completely a magic material that sort of solves all the
Mhm.
problems that we have for our current batteries. But I think a steady development, and we will see many interesting things, maybe in case of sodium-ion batteries or solid-state batteries, and sort of materials that have higher energy density, longer cycle life, and is safer
Mhm.
in general. So many developments in all of those things. And in terms of AI, I think it's really interesting because we see now the applications of AI in
Yeah.
everything, and we are sort of looking at how we can make better use of AI to accelerate our work and how to sort of incorporate it in much more reliably in the research that we do for material synthesis and for many different other things. So I'm also excited to see what new things they lead to. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything during the interview that we didn't get a chance to discuss that you think is important for people to know about battery research or sustainability in general?
I think it's sort of important to remember that sustainability isn't just about developing better batteries, but it's also about uh, making the whole thing economically circular in a way so that like paying attention to recycling, making better use of existing materials and pipelines that we have. So sort of every step of the way to design everything in terms of synthesis and research so that like we truly build a sustainable energy system. And I think all of these challenges really require a lot of contribution from people from very many different backgrounds, right? It really, I think both AI and like batteries in general, like everything that I'm doing, they sort of sit in the intersection of like chemistry, data science, and then engineering.
Mhm.
So really we need chemists, engineers, computer scientists, environmental scientists, and policymakers, everybody working together to make like better use of like all of these systems, right? Both in AI and in battery systems, and in really energy sciences in general. And I think this is where young people like you can make meaningful contributions in the future, um, as these fields are very exciting. So, yeah.
Definitely, I agree with how we need like a lot of people from different backgrounds in computer science, chemistry, all kind of working on building a sustainable future. And yeah, thank you so much for taking time to do this interview.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it was really nice talking to you
Yeah.
about all of these things. Yeah.